Well, welcome to Legacy Lines. Today is Thursday, February 6, 2025, and this is episode number 13. So welcome to Legacy Lines, as I said, where each episode is a journey into the wisdom that shapes our lives. I'm Jason, your guide through stories and strategies that forge exceptional paths. Here we dive into the teachings that have not only shaped my life, but can redefine yours. From the biblical landscapes that guide us to the financial acumen that builds empires. Join us as we unpack the tool sets for extraordinary results. This isn't just knowledge, it's legacy in the making. And today I am frustrated and also eating a bit of humble pie. I have really tried hard to maintain a small digital footprint to produce this podcast. I use that very lightly. I would say I have tried out consumer grade devices to capture audio and video, and still am doing that with the video, but I am a purist when it comes to audio, and I've been putting off testing a proper recording interface with the proper microphone attached to it to get excellent audio. So you will probably notice, as I've stated, I am always trying to iterate, get better little by little. I'm sure you'll notice a significant difference in the audio, and also going to try to share some PowerPoint details today in the form of a screen share. So I want to talk about the intro today. This is my second time recording this, so my mind is a little bit, as I said, I'm a little bit frustrated because I was trying a new bit of software and it did not work. So bottom line is I am in the business of continuing to try new things in hopes that I will end up with a well-produced podcast that meets my liking. That being said, today's topic, I'm utilizing artificial intelligence tool for the first time called Gamma. I've never used it before to create a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm going to click over to that, and we're going to get into that today. And for those of you that are watching on video, you can follow along as you see fit as we go through this. But the introduction and the title today is AI, Money, Quick Fame, Influence, Possessions, and they are magnifying your belief system. And the framework I want to pose out to you today is called really the magnifying effect. And I want to open with a personal story of a family that I actually went to school with, two brothers, that their father had won $7 million in the lottery. And at the time, it was just unbelievable. This was, in the early 90s. So this would be, 14 to 18 million now, adjusted for inflation. So a long time ago. And I wanted to spell out their quote-unquote rise. They quickly bought a house in the nicer part of town. As they started to drive, they had cars, they had the loudest stereos, et cetera, et cetera. It looked by all means that they were living the high life. And fast forward, 35 years, I happen to be on one of the social media networks. My wife and I are in the market for a couple new used vehicles for us. And I ran across their profiles. And lo and behold, it was very evident that they were not people of means anymore. As a matter of fact, it looked like, judging from the pictures and the proximity of where they were at and what they were doing, it really looked like they were living an empty, disillusioned life, and it was quite sad. My heart goes out to them. The reason why I bring that up is I believe, looking from afar, and we'll dive down into a couple other examples of this, the magnifying effect in regards to their family is likely related to the lack of stewardship that made that windfall really a curse as opposed to a blessing. And so as we get into that today, we will talk about what that looks like from a couple different examples. So as I stated over here on the screen, I shared the story of the $7 million. And then the deeper truth and the takeaway from that story is I believe that it just simply magnifies who you already are already. And that's the takeaway there. And the broader principle is any resource, whether it be money, technology, or influence, magnifies who you already are. And setting some biblical foundations here, in Luke 16:10, we read, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And then this applies to how the small habits and decisions prepare us for bigger responsibilities. I know I've found that to be true in my life, that as I steward and mindfully go through the quote-unquote smaller things of life, whether it be getting to work on time. I used to really have a problem with that when I was a young man. Whether it be following up, whether it be over-communicating. Just tonight, I just sent a text before I got on here. I coach my daughter's, I'm assistant coach on my daughter's basketball team. We are not feeling well still, and I was making the call just to reach out proactively to the other coach and say, look, we're not able to be there tonight. I'm very sorry. We were playing it by ear. He probably didn't need to know all that. He's an understanding guy, but at the same time, I want to go above and beyond in those little things and take it seriously, that the reality of it is he's on his own now at the practice, and that requires an adjustment. So whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. So how we apply the small habits and decisions prepare us for bigger responsibility. And we see this in the parable of the talents in Matthew 14 through 30. I will paraphrase this here. Matthew 14 through 30, the parable of the talents, that before we get into that, blessing requires action, growth, and stewardship to multiply. And this is a little bit of a funny topic in faith circles, but I would propose to you the idea that the parable illustrates how blessings require action, growth, and stewardship to multiply. Now, we can do nothing more to earn our salvation that Christ paid in full for us. We were bankrupt. There was no possible way we could bridge the gap. There was a divide in between us and our Lord, and only Jesus could come in and prepare the way for us to bridge the gap, so to speak. However, I would propose to you the idea that is a starting point. That is the starting point to the kingdom of God. And as we grow in the parable of talents and we see ourselves grow, we want to make sure that we are not people squandering our opportunities and the gift that we're born into the digital age where knowledge abounds everywhere, that we're maximizing our opportunities. And so we're going to talk about this a little bit more as we bump down into some different technologies and under the banner of magnifying who we already are. And I do want to give credit where credit is due. I have talked with my brother about this principle, and I basically have adopted this idea that I got this idea from him. And the idea is great breakthroughs or shortcuts just magnify who you already are. So let's look at artificial intelligence. And for those of you that don't know what that is, artificial intelligence has many different expressions right now emerging in the world. They're putting it into, they meaning developers, software firms, technology agencies, they're putting it into physical robots that can move around and interact and do tasks. They're putting it into basically everything that you interact with in the form of a chat or a web experience, which I'll talk about here in a moment. Questions and answer on your bank's webpage. Those kinds of things are rapidly being shifted to artificial intelligence and or digital assistants. Think of it like a digital assistant or a virtual assistant on steroids if you know how to command it. But let's look at a poor use of AI, the two paths of AI. So really, basically, businesses or individuals relying entirely on AI to replace effort, it's going to result in failure. Okay, so an example would be, and the one that I just gave, companies that use AI for customer interactions without understanding customer needs or integrating human oversight. So what this simply means is the AI engine doesn't make it a great experience. We call it, in the product world, we call it having customer empathy or setting on the other side of the table from the experience. And I would propose to you that unless these tools are monitored and trained and looked at ongoing, that this does not replace human intelligence and human interaction, and nor I believe that it won't as time goes on. I believe that it's a very, very powerful tool, but this is a poor use case just to say we want to cut costs, we're going to get rid of these human elements to our staff and move on with our life and blah, blah, blah. There you go. An excellent use or excellent uses for AI would be in the form of a small business using AI tools like ChatGPT to enhance customer service or streamline workflows, paired with a diligent work ethic. Now, let's pause and I'll give one more example. I'm going to talk about this small business one right now. If I had a team that I was responsible for, I would immediately get everybody access to two things: the ChatGPT engine to utilize it in your day-to-day reasoning and tasks, with the understanding that you need to treat this like you are interacting with another person. This is a little bit of a slippery slope here, but hear me out. Because the engine is so powerful, it can meet you where you're at. So the idea that it's magnifying who you are is really front and center. So if you suck, guess what? Your AI engine is going to suck. That's the professional term there. So I would give all my teammates the ability, with some instructions, with some boundaries, to say, here's how I use this in my day-to-day. Your productivity can enhance by 50, 60, even 70% if you think about the ways that you can utilize it well. And I would also utilize it for repeatable company documents. So, every business, nonprofit, government institution, whatever, they have a myriad of documents that are basically public-facing. If you think about it that way, whether it's a form to fill out, whether it's knowledge and information, whether it's some form of a wiki, blah, 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 it really can be utilized to look at what's called a data lake or a knowledge base and decipher the information very quickly to get into the hands of customers and or teammates for repetitive tasks, frequently asked questions, things of that nature. It's very powerful with that. Another great use case would be a marketing agency that uses AI for content creation, but ensures human quality control. There's the key component there. Ensures human quality control, doubling productivity while maintaining excellence. So the idea, again, magnifying your belief system. If you already are a person that takes shortcuts, just because you have a great tool like AI isn't going to make you any more efficient. So that's not really a thing. It's just going to magnify who you are. So we don't take for granted the tools and powerful things that we live in the digital age, but we also know that we also have to partake in that for us to be successful in the area of stewardship. This next example that I'm going to talk about is the idea of money that didn't come directly from your hard work, and or you were taught a belief system to steward it. I'll pull out one of my favorite examples. It's actually not my favorite because it's a sad example, but we'll look at the Vanderbilt family. So I'll give you a little bit of a history lesson here. So generational wealth and why it rarely lasts, okay? So research shows that 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation, so that's 40 to 50 years, and 90% by the third generation. Wow, look at that delta just handed off from the patriarch and matriarch to the second generation, 70%. That's unbelievable. So the Vanderbilt family, Cornelius Vanderbilt, built a massive fortune, and how he built that was literally shipping with ships. This was prior to rail being inland to the USA, and he was a genius at this, master of logistics. They called him the commandeer. Basically, he was a groundbreaking forefather in the movement of, when you think logistics like UPS, FedEx, those kinds of things. Probably not Pony Express, because I think they were in existence. So if we're talking about Cornelius Vanderbilt, it's, I believe, the 1860s, 70s, 80s, even 90s. He was a crotchety old man, and he was hard to die even when the life expectancy was way low. I think he lived to around 80 years old, which was unbelievable at the time. So when shipping was at the peak and he was at the top of his game, he literally made an exit out and got out of shipping and stayed in shipping, but pivoted to rails, okay? So this is when the uprise of the railroads, and he became a mogul in the rail industry. As a matter of fact, Grand Central Station in New York was his vision. They carried it out to build a monument to the family and to the citizens and to how great the rail, blah, blah, blah. So And at one time, Cornelius Vanderbilt was the richest person in the world. Something like $435 million back in the 1880s, 1890s, something like that. Then it bounced back and forth between the Rockefeller family and the Carnegie family. And the Vanderbilt family, Cornelius built that massive fortune, but by the third generation, much of it was gone. And what is crazy about this is when you think about, I believe in North Carolina, around Durham, North Carolina, I believe, is the Biltmore, is this monument to the family's wealth. It's an incredible mansion. It's beautiful. It's probably worth, I don't know, maybe $200 million. I'm making that up. I don't know. But the reality of it is by the third generation, judging by these statistics, 90% of that was gone. So shifting gears, that's obviously a bad use case that we don't want to repeat. And leaving a real legacy requires some more digging in, some more purposeful action than opposed to just you have money and you don't understand the cost of what this was paid to get this money. So the analysis would be without spiritual, emotional, and behavioral intelligence, monetary wealth becomes unsustainable. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we teach the inheritance concepts? Now, I'll deduce it down to three basic things that I think about that I want to instill in you children. For those of you that don't know, I say this almost every time. I created this podcast to give away a digital copy of life's lessons to my children, also while modeling behavior. This is a different way to get my voice to them. So a true legacy includes spiritual inheritance, so family values, biblical worldview, faith, and purpose. Emotional intelligence, I think this one is largely overlooked. Emotional resilience and relational intelligence, those are big deals, especially as you grow and you're interacting with different circles of people and you're a person of means. There's an emotional burden that comes with being able to handle that properly. And number three, the modeled behavior. As the matriarchal generations, we want to model that work ethic, the discipline, and the leadership. And summing it up, the cost of what it took to get the wealth built up. And it's not just all about monetary wealth, as I've been saying. So that was a weird way to end out of that. So we'll go on to the next one. Okay, so we want to look at daily habits and the mirror of our belief system. And quick success can't replace discipline. Blessings last only with stewardship. So that's a big understanding there. That quick success, I mentioned that in the opening, and it's in the title, quick fame. You often see those people flame out quickly. One hit wonder. That's the one that always comes to mind. It's like, okay, that was great, but then how do you sustain that? How do you reproduce that? And that's a whole different discussion. But you have to pair that quick success with stewardship. And it goes back to sometimes you'll encounter an individual that appears like an overnight success, but the reality of it is they were grinding behind the scenes for 20 years, and then all of a sudden it just all worked for them. So daily habits, the mirror of your belief system. As we dig down into this, everybody's heard the term trust fund babies. And I think we can look at that quick fame, quick money, something that I didn't pay a price for, much like the last example, trust fund beneficiaries who burn through their inheritance due to poor habits. That's often the case. And then entrepreneurs who maintain success by aligning resources with discipline and purpose. That's a big deal. So aligning resources with discipline and purpose. So what should we do so we can make sure to put some guardrails around our daily habits and belief system? So we want to audit our belief system and daily habits. So what habits reflect stewardship? And then also get really self-aware on where we're cutting corners. So we don't want to be somebody that doesn't align resources with discipline and purpose, and that it is living frivolously, and that doesn't have a mechanism or a fundamental belief system on how things actually work and are created, makers versus takers. So as we close out this episode today, I would just say that this is something I'm still formulating and trying to articulate the mirror of said thing. Lots of things are amoral. They don't have they're not nefarious on their own. They are not evil just because you have them. They are not. You're not a bad person if you don't understand stewardship. But the reality of it is resources like AI, money, and influence are tools. They're not solutions. They're not solutions. So what can we do? What can we do? We can use a building block, and we can use a building block to understand that resources are tools, not solutions, as I already said. And we want to align our beliefs and habits with stewardship to create a legacy that outlasts us, and always be thinking with a long time horizon. Yes, Lord, let me be thinking past my life, past my generation, past what my children are going to do, even their children's children. So just be a person with a long time horizon, because that gets you out of that selfish taker mindset, and it gets us into stewardship. And then blessings paired with diligence lead to a lasting impact. Blessings paired with diligence lead to a lasting impact. So as we close out, what's the call to action? So which resource in your life are you stewarding well, and where do you need to grow? So let's reflect on how our daily habits and belief systems shape the blessings in our life. And remember, and I love saying this, and I say it all the time, and I truly mean it, and Lord help me right now, because I need to feel better, and I'm getting ready to go out for a walk, and hopefully this records and I can edit it and put it out to the interwebs, but the best is yet to come. I'm glad to be with you. I'm glad to be here serving with you, and have a great day.